right, welcome to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. Thank you for tuning in, whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate you. Like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. My name is Caleb. I am a startup junkie with my co-host, Jeff Amerine. How's it going?
Glad to be here. Beautiful spring day in the Ozarks.
Absolutely beautiful day today. And we're very excited to have with us today Adam Zambanini of Trex. How's it going, Adam?
Man, it's fantastic. It is a beautiful day out and nice day to be walking around Fayetteville.
Absolutely. Well, we're glad to have you in Fayetteville. Your first visit to Fayetteville.
It is my first visit, and I went down to Hugo's.
Yeah.
Had a good burger.
Did you have the Blue Moon burger?
You know, they kind of ordered up for me.
Oh, they did? All right.
Yeah, I just said to the guy at the table, whatever you think. I heard this is what you're known for. So
big old plate of fries too?
Yeah. Well, there was chips today.
Okay.
But,
all right.
But it was a good burger.
Yeah. They've been doing that for a while. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, I figured I'm not the expert at the burgers here.
It's all good.
Yeah, well, we are glad to have you here, and we're glad to have Trex in Arkansas, coming to Arkansas. So for those of you tuning in, listening, for those people, what is Trex? So let's give us the rundown.
So your Trex has been around for over 25 years, and Trex is alternative decking material. So we are probably one of the greenest companies in the world. We've never cut down a tree. To make Trex, we take reclaimed wood. So wood that can come from, it could be from cabinet manufacturers, it can come from pallet manufacturers, all their scraps. Mm-hmm. We take that wood and we bring it back to our facilities. We also take plastic, like recycled. We're the largest recycler of plastic bags in the United States.
Wow.
That's even a smaller part of our stream. The largest part of our plastic stream would be like shrink wrap stretch film. So your Kellogg's Corn Flakes, your Campbell's soups that come to, it could be Walmart's or your local grocery store. We collect all that stuff and we bring it into Trex. And then I always take it back to when you were a kid, right? And you had your Play-Doh sets. Mm-hmm. We take it, we mix it up, we heat it, we put it in a mixer, and we push it through just like you would your Play-Doh through the die. Mm-hmm. And out at the other end comes Trex.
And it's a great alternative to traditional wood decking or other, right? Long life and all that.
So the beauty of it is the product line's really evolved. There's been several different generations, but in the last 10 years, we were really on the forefront of some newer technology. The product is co-extruded. So it is, there's a cap or a shell that we put on top of our decking product. Mm-hmm. And what that does is it gives it scratch, stain, fade, and mold resistance. So it really is low maintenance. And if you kind of look at what's going on out there, right? People are looking for more green products out there in the environment. People also want to spend more time on vacation, less time working around the house. So,
sure.
You know, I grew up working with my parents, let's say, around the house, doing different things. But these days, people want to go out there, they want to enjoy their life. And so they're not doing as much of that maintenance around the house. They want as low maintenance products as possible. So we kind of line up with some really good trends, and we've seen some very good growth over the last decade.
So for folks who don't necessarily want to spend their weekends pressure washing mold off of decks, this is the product for them, even though it's kind of satisfying to do the lines of the
I guess you could, but you're right, you don't need to do that. It's easy to clean. It is very aesthetically appealing. It's also, you can do different things on a Trex deck than you can on a traditional deck. So you can bend it, you can curve it in terms of what's going on there, so that it kind of creates a different aesthetic. Trex also doesn't just manufacture decking, but we also manufacture railing. We have a composite rail system similar to what the decking is. We also have an aluminum rail system. And a lot of the products that we design or we make, we like to have some green in our DNA. So like even the aluminum material has upwards of 50% recycled material in there. Yeah. We also have a line of chairs, furniture. So we have furniture, we have pergolas, we have deck lighting. So what we're doing is we're trying to create an outdoor living experience, right? We don't want to be just a decking and railing manufacturer. We want to be the solution to that threshold to your back door. And when you look at the cheapest way to invest in your home, right, that you're going to get the most square footage, it's actually outside your house. So when you start comparing how much you're spending indoors to the time you can outdoors, you can build that outdoor living room that you've always wanted to for a lot less money than you can for some of the stuff you can spend inside your home.
That's really interesting. So we're going to take a step back now and give us a little bit of your origin story. How did you come to Trex, your background and all that?
Yeah. So I originally graduated up from Pennsylvania. I graduated from Penn State. And yes, the University of Arkansas beat us up pretty bad in the Outback Bowl. I was at the game in Tampa.
Wasn't going to bring that up, but
yeah, I was there.
Go Hawks.
I was there, and I took it. Hopefully, there's a.
We'll get you some Razorback red too.
But it is good to see Arkansas back. Right?
Yeah, I agree.
And so it was a fun game. But I graduated from Penn State. I was actually a mechanical engineering graduate. When I graduated from college, I knew one thing. I didn't necessarily want to be a mechanical engineer. But I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Eventually, I started up with a company called Flambeau. They did decoys, tackle boxes, outdoor hunting, fishing, those sorts of things. From there, I moved on to Rubbermaid. So I worked for Rubbermaid for several different years, but I worked for their commercial division, which is in Winchester, Virginia. Okay. And Winchester, Virginia is also the headquarters of Trex. So what happened when I was younger is that I was working at Rubbermaid, seeing this young company kind of grow up before my eyes named Trex. And honestly, it really intrigued me because I looked at it like a blank slate with so much opportunity. So eventually over time, I got hired on to Trex, and I moved from kind of in product development marketing role, moved into vice president of marketing, and then in 2018 I moved to president of the residential division for Trex. So I've been at Trex now, this will be 17 years. Best move of my life. I think you're going to find out working at Trex. There's a great family environment, atmosphere. There's an entrepreneurial spirit within the walls of Trex. And there's a lot of opportunity with this type of company, right? Because we see, if we take a look at the market, 3 or 4 years ago, the total lineal feet of wood in this market was about 84%. And now it's about 76, 77%. And a lot of that has been because the alternative decking materials like Trex is taking market share away from wood. Trex owns, it's the number one manufacturer worldwide, but it also owns 50% market share in the alternative decking market. So when we look at that pie and we say there's 76, 77% share in wood and lineal feet, we think there's a tremendous opportunity to take share from wood that will continue our growth.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about the entrepreneurial spirit within Trex, and some listeners that are in the entrepreneurial space might be curious to know, what that looks like from the inside.
So there's many different pathways, and we loved Arkansas when we came here because there's so many factors that go into it for what we need to run a facility, right? On the R&D side or the innovation, we're constantly looking at new materials that we can put in our decking products. We're also looking at new designs and new concepts and all that. So let's start on engineering. We look at the University of Arkansas. I'm actually going to check that out later today. Stop by the campus, and we think it's a great engineering school. And there's many different engineering schools throughout Arkansas. And so that's one factor as to when we looked at Arkansas that seemed to be a pool of candidates that would make a lot of sense for us there. When it comes to supply chain, so logistics, we wanted an area that we're going to be in the port of Little Rock, but we wanted an area that we could rail. We wanted to have good access to trucking. We also wanted to have access to wood. Well, the Ozarks are close to here too.
Yeah,
so
it's a high degree of forestation.
So there's when you look at some of the factors, whether it's raw materials or whether it's people, those are some of the reasons why we picked it. And when we went down this pathway, we started with a couple hundred cities across the United States. We narrowed it down to 4 states. And it was really evident as an executive team that we wanted to be in Arkansas. It just, it felt like home to us, and we're, I'd say our executive team's been throughout the country, but many of us are still along the East Coast.
Sure.
And, when we came here, we were it didn't matter whether you're the mayor, the governor, whoever we spoke to. It just felt like a very seamless transition and really wanted to work with us to come to this community and grow it. And so we just see so much opportunity here.
It's exciting. Very exciting. And so Port of Little Rock, so when you mentioned earlier to me about breaking ground, what's that look like? What's the timeline, and what do you hope to achieve down there?
So yeah, we're just going through some final things on the development code, but I would guess in the next 30 to 45 days, we will be breaking ground in the Port of Little Rock. And so the time frame is we want to break ground in the next 30 to 45 days, and then let's say the foundation, the walls go up as we move into this fall. We start working on utilities and everything. By next summer, that's when we start looking at putting in some of those lines. But we'll be prepared in 2024, sometime in early 2024 is kind of our time frame that we're looking at. And we do this based on our supply and demand, right? Our supply chain and how we monitor that on a month-to-month basis. But that's kind of our time period and what we're doing. On the hiring front, though, we're already starting. We've already hired someone for HR. We've also hired a person that's really going to be the face of Trex in Arkansas. His name is James Reddish, and he's going to be director of the economic and development within Arkansas, and he's been here for many different years, and he's very, very excited. We have a plan of probably about 40 engineers over the next 6 to 12 months that we're going to be looking at.
The mechanical, industrial, electrical,
kind of all of those.
All that,
right.
yeah. Maybe some chemical engineers in there too.
Yes, chemical is very important for the composition of ours.
Sure.
So you're looking at a lot of that. And then by next summer, we'll be looking at the workforce. So operators, right? How are you going to run these lines? We'll be looking for people on packaging. Further down, we'll be looking for forklift operators. So we'll probably want a 6-month window next year where we're kind of ramping up for a startup. But we'll even be bringing on engineers, I would say, later this summer into the fall that we'll be bringing back to our headquarters into Winchester, Virginia, that we want to hire on for Arkansas, that they can start learning our process. And we teach them that so that, when we get to give them about a year under their belt, so we kind of get into those next phases, they're prepared for a plant startup.
And as part of that, also to kind of transplant the Trex culture, the DNA from the business, all that. Talk a little bit about the culture of Trex from your perspective.
Yeah, so the culture of Trex, like I said, that entrepreneurial spirit, I always tell people if there's something you can't accomplish at Trex, it's kind of on you, right? Because the way we've built this company is there's been a lot of very, very smart people. There's been a lot of ideas, and there's a lot of collaboration throughout the walls of Trex. And so no idea is a bad idea. It's kind of our culture.
Right.
So there's a lot of support across the organization. We go through a 3, 5, and 10-year strategic plan.
Wow.
And we do that just to kind of, like our vision, engineering what's next in outdoor living, right? So we kind of look at that vision in everything we do, where we want to go. Do we want to just be a building product on the side of a home, or do we want to create an experience? So my example would be you go to Disney, right? And Disney World, the reason that people want to pay that money is the experience. I remember the first time my kids were in the elevator, they hit the button and they could smell the campfire.
Right.
But there wasn't a campfire within a mile of where we were.
Yeah.
They were just pumping in that smell in the elevator. And that's what we are, right? We want to create that experience with people. And so that kind of permeates through the culture. When we design our products, when we build our products, is this going to be a gateway to a conversation for somebody into the future with their friends or family, have a beer, a glass of wine, whatever that is. So that's part of there. There is a part of our culture that there's an accountability piece of it. Part of our success is, dates and deadlines. They matter. They mean something. So with that, we're very good, I would say, at implementing things because we're very good in process engineering, project engineering. And that's just kind of this strength that we've built off our bench over the years, right? And so we also have this culture of embracing new people that are coming within the organization. Understand they don't know a lot from day one, but let's just kind of get to know who the players are within the organization, and then let's kind of slowly ramp them up along the way. So we have in our corporate headquarters a 10,000 square foot facility. It's called Trex University. And so Trex University is where somebody comes in. We bring in our distributors, our dealers, our contractors. We also bring in our employees. So we'll be bringing in people from Arkansas into Trex University.
That's great.
And so what you do is you kind of go through, like I talked to you about the wood and the plastic, right? You go through the foundational things on how Trex was started. You walk them through that. Then we go into the branding room. Here's how we sell Trex, right? So here's a map on the wall that shows all the locations of Trexes worldwide. You know, we're in about 50 different countries worldwide. And through that, then we go on the TV screen and there's a presentation on the brand. And here's what our website looks like. Here's what our traffic looks like on the website. Then we go into an experience center where it's all hands-on, right? So if you're a contractor, here's some new products that you might want to work on. Here's the new techniques of installing this type of product. And then from there, there's a whole outdoor living experience. It's huge. And that's great because I think it's the only place in the world that really shows off all of our products in one room.
Right.
And so even for people that have been with us for many years, they walk into that room and there's always something new.
Right.
They see when they walk in that room. And so it's a very exciting time. So, you know, that's also part of the culture as we bring on new people to make sure that they have the experience, understand who we are, how we sell, how we make things, why those things are important. We love to get consumer feedback and we love to get contractor feedback because we don't exist without that consumer or that contractor. So for a lot of our, you know, if you're in the marketing side of the business, right, our products are thoroughly researched. And we might go out before we launch a new product 4 or 5 different times with focus groups across the country, just understanding what the drivers are, right? How important is green to your aspects of life?
Right.
What about the aesthetics? What about the performance? You know, what type of scratch are you looking for? Are you looking for the type of scratch that, you know, your dogs can walk through it? You know, your 100-pound dog can go across it? Or are you trying to ice skate across this thing, right? So these are things that we're kind of ingrained in our culture, and we try to teach them in the first several months that you onboard.
Yeah, as you look at kind of the futures, it seems you're largely in some ways a material science business. Are there some interesting things happening with materials that are outside of the wood and aluminum and recycled plastics? What's that horizon look like?
So it's very insightful, by the way. So we're finding it more and more as a challenge. I think is every company across the U.S. is a supply chain right now, right? And so how Trex has evolved is more and more companies want to go green. And so where Trex is going to is, you know, let's just say if that film or those bags that we used to collect 5 years ago might have had 5% contamination in it, right? So now maybe there's 15-20% more contamination in there, right? Because there's more of this stuff being used. In the future, 5-10 years from now, that could be 40, 50, 60% contamination. So, excuse me, we have to keep up with the processing of this material and how it goes in there. There's really an art and science about how you process Trex. Taking all these different types of plastics, which have different melt indexes, right? And dropping them in along with these wood species, right? In order to make Trex. So there's all these different recipes that these operators have to learn along the way as they extrude and make it. And as I see the future evolve is there's going to be more challenges ahead, right? On the chemistry side of the business. In order to keep up with that amount of growth is the amount of different materials and types of materials that we have to process. So that means we're going to have to go further and wider across the spectrum of raw materials that we can collect and figure out ways that we can use them. And that's been a part of Trex over the years, is figuring out our funnels of materials keep getting wider and wider as we grow. And that's just going to continue to be more challenging for us moving forward.
Sure.
But that's exciting though, right? I mean, that's part of that entrepreneurial, innovative.
It is very
process,
exciting. And I also think, you know, on the engineering front, what a challenge, right? So when I look at some other things, right? Automation. So that's going to be something in the future. You look at process engineering, that's another form of engineering. Project engineering and management, as we keep growing, there's going to be more buildings, more facilities. You're going to have to make investments in there. And then research and development.
Sure.
So yes, it's a very exciting time. I think it's also a very challenging time. And so if you're one of these people that want to to look at something that's going to be challenging, definitely that's where Trex fits in your life, right? That we can meet that challenge, but it's very rewarding, right? When you look at the growth, we did 1.2 billion last year. It was only a couple years ago, we were half that size. So, there's been rapid growth within the organization, and we still think that there's plenty of room to grow here moving forward. And with that, you can grow a career.
Sure. Yeah.
The Arkansas Inc. podcast provides an in-depth look at the latest industry trends in Arkansas from decision makers, business leaders, and executives. The Arkansas Inc. podcast has focused on a range of business and economic development topics, including small business and entrepreneurship, international business, fintech, workforce development, and community development. Each episode, which are about 30 minutes long, features business leaders and subject matter experts in conversation with knowledgeable members of the AEDC team. Recent guests have included Governor Asa Hutchinson, UAMS Chancellor Dr. Cam Patterson, Conductor Managing Director Dr. Jeff Standridge, and representatives from companies including Amazon, Walmart, IBM, Ozark Integrated Circuits, and more. The goal of the podcast is to help provide more information about Arkansas and its strong business environment to help business owners and executives make the decision to move to or expand in Arkansas. The Arkansas Inc. podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and other podcast apps. Just search for Arkansas Inc. To learn more or subscribe to Arkansas Inc. podcast, visit arkansasedc.com/podcast.
For those young mechanical engineers and others that are spending a lot of time with 3D printing and kind of additive manufacturing, is Trex a place they should think about going based on what they're excited about in school?
So we have a bunch of 3D printers at Trex.
I bet. I would only imagine.
It's funny. So there's two different sides of the business, right? There's a side of the business that's the R&D side. So a lot of times we want to test out and develop concepts. We use the 3D printers, and we have different types of 3D printers that we use, different sizes of 3D printers that we use. So those are available. But even in the manufacturing front, when they're trying to figure out, even on parts and pieces, on equipment, machinery, some of that stuff is adapted to the Trex process. And so we even 3D print parts that could be used temporarily in manufacturing. And I actually think that that's something that people don't talk often about, is that you see the supply chain constraints, right? And you can't find the part piece. So are you supposed to stay shut down? Or do you find a way to keep it running?
Yeah.
And so we've even used the 3D printers to kind of keep the operation going, right? It's only a temporary thing.
Sure.
If you're using the right materials, in some cases, you can use that 3D printed part just for a little bit of time to keep the operation going before you get the part that comes in from the supply chain piece. So absolutely, if you're into that, you're into additives, you're into automation. I just think that there's going to be, there's more and more challenges out there. Well, we're looking at hiring upwards of 500, 550 people in Arkansas as we continue to ramp up. There's still parts of our process that we have to automate in addition to hiring all those people, right? As you just look at the growth and trajectory of our business. So, somebody that likes to deal with robots or automating different processes, we're the place for you as well.
Computer vision, so using AI and computer vision for inspection and quality and all that.
They are looking at that, like monitoring systems, all that stuff. Absolutely. And I think that's where every business is going. Right?
Yeah.
And we're kind of in the infancy stage now,
Sure.
but you can see it coming on board. And I think there's, even Tesla right now is looking at those robots, right? That he's actually building out.
In his spare time when he's not running Twitter, right?
When he's not running
he
Twitter.
might actually build some stuff.
And that's just with the challenge of when you have rapid growth like that. There are definitely parts of the operation when you have to start looking at some of those things. So yes, it's amazing how much things have changed since the pandemic that we've had to adapt to as an organization. And there's all new things that are kind of propping up, and those are definitely areas that are going to grow within Trex in the next 3 to 5 years.
Very exciting stuff.
And I think it's the value of implementing that innovative spirit inside of a company that's not necessarily a startup, and the ability to kind of move and adapt and tackle challenges real time and be willing to tackle challenges real time. Like Ted Lasso said that if tackling a challenge is like riding a horse, if you look comfortable while you're doing it wrong. So tackling it from that perspective. You mentioned hiring 500 to 550 employees in Arkansas. And I have to mention that AEDC is one of our sponsors. Thank you, AEDC. So talk a little bit about the reception and the interactions you had with those folks down there in Little Rock at AEDC and kind of what that process was like to get you here.
Yeah, so of course, like I said, we got down to 4 states, and everybody kind of does a certain form of a dog and pony show.
Sure,
where you come in, new customers, and they want to show you the area, and you put you up at the nice place and all that stuff. So that's kind of a level playing field.
Yeah.
But I said to people, and I wasn't kidding about that, the people really made the difference. The seamless nature that we saw between the local government and the state government was remarkable to us. It wasn't even a close second, if I'm being honest with you. They really made it easy when we wanted to see, we had our vision and we shared our growth and where we wanted to go. And they didn't know who we were, by the way. So they had no clue it was Trex. At the time, we called it Project Treehouse. But them listening to us and then providing feedback and on, the rapid feedback and rapid response, right? We're reaching out to all these other governments across the U.S., but the response that we got back from them, professionalism, working together, we really believe that when we go into Little Rock, we have somebody that's working with us side by side, and is going to make it easier. So, like for example, we're going to have an office in the port here, and so that office is going to be coming online here this summer and the fall. So they're helping us with that piece of it. We're leasing, but at least they found a space for us, and that's something that's going to help us as we grow and we get in there. Right, we kind of foundationally need something, and so they did it. The trade schools within the area, that was one of the things that was a concern to us. So we saw at the professional level, we see the engineering talent throughout the state. What about the trades talent? And honestly, I would tell you, pound for pound, one of the best trades around. The trade school was very impressive.
Was that Pulaski?
Yes.
It's a great operation.
I thought it was very, very, very good when we compared it to some of the other facilities that were out there. And so we felt like that was something that we could partner up with and find some people in the technical trades. So maintenance is, we haven't talked about that, right? But maintenance is really hard in any type of manufacturing, finding talented people in those areas, because a maintenance personnel is kind of jack of all trades, right? You're mechanical, you're electrical, and we have, pretty heavy duty equipment that has to be worked on. And you really have to have the fundamentals down pat. So finding people that are really good in maintenance are critical to our operation. And so when we looked at Pulaski, we felt like we could work with them on a program, for Trex over time and help develop it out. And that was kind of them bringing it to us that, hey, we'd be working with you on, whether it's welding or electrical and all that stuff. We can help you with some of those classes and how you build that out. And so it made us feel more comfortable, right? All those things, you're coming into a new area, a green field where you just have nothing but the land and you're trying to think like, where do I start?
Right.
It just made it very easy for us to here's where you're going to go for trades. Here's where you're going to go for engineering. Here's how many people live in the area, which by the way, there's more people live in the area of Arkansas than we have in our facility in Nevada and our facility in Virginia. And part of the reason why we're going to Arkansas is we have no facility in the central region.
Right.
But we're also, when you look at our 2 facilities in expansion, it's more difficult at this point, being landlocked in some of those areas. So this plant here in Arkansas will help relieve some of that volume that's needed on the East Coast and West Coast to expand. And this will service the center part of the country. And we're the only manufacturer that has a plant on the East Coast, Central, and the West Coast part of the country.
That's great. And central location is big for supply chain. And you can get to, that's part of the reason why you have large trucking companies that are in the region like FedEx Freight and Maverick and ABF and others is JB Hunt is for exactly that reason. You can get to either anywhere in the U.S. in just a couple of days.
And the other part of our strategy is growing to take share away from wood. If you look to the southern part of the United States, it's southern yellow pine.
Yeah.
And so as you go over all the way into Alabama, Georgia, all that, and we think there's a tremendous opportunity to expand there. And so when look at where this facility's at, close sources in wood. There's also plastic within the area. This is a good hub for us to expand that wood market share, being located here in Arkansas.
And I had the opportunity to go down and to the Port of Little Rock last fall, probably days after y'all made the announcement, and it was part of an event with the Chamber of Commerce, and they had made the comment. They were talking about the process and said that they didn't know who was coming in, but they were told we need X, Y, Z, and they were like, let's figure it out. Yeah. So it was interesting to hear that perspective and then hear your side of how you all approached that.
They really rolled out the red carpet. And by the way, the press event was great. I mean, the turnout throughout the state at that event was phenomenal. We even we have a United States flag made out of Trex. Really, really cool, for the chamber. And so it was, we like that location there in the port. And as you mentioned, from the, whether it's rail, trucking, all that, easy access from this location to anywhere in the country.
Absolutely. And Pulaski Tech, we do have additional sponsorship opportunities.
That's right.
If you're interested. I had a question. I blanked.
Well, so let's talk about, you've talked a little bit about the expansion here, but if you were to look into the crystal ball for what the next 5 to 10 years looks like for Trex, what's that going to look like as a company?
Yeah, so we see there's a couple different forms. New channels. One channel for us, for example, our deck board that goes horizontally, you can go vertically. So if you start to see some major mass merchants out there, some Starbucks that are out there, we're starting to put alternative decking on the sides of them. So we think one channel is, instead of going horizontal, we can go vertical. And so that's it's a different aesthetic for the building, and we're highly competitive in those commercial spaces. So that's an area that we
be competing with hardy board and other materials, right?
It's like, sometimes it could be, but it's more like a stone or brick.
Gotcha.
Type of stuff that's going onto the side of it.
So generally aesthetic.
Yeah.
It's just an aesthetic play. We're also seeing it in residential. It is a lot of times used to just break up the look or the design on the side of the building. So that's one of the areas we want to grow. Another area we want to grow is international. So in 2009, 2010, I went over, we started up the international business. And we think, that was our fastest growing business up until the pandemic. We had kind of capacity constraints. But it's been a very, very good business for us over time. And like I mentioned, we're in 50 different countries. And so as I look at expanding, even facilities, all that other stuff, there's tremendous opportunity. International, we sell also a lot in the Northern Territories up in Canada.
Sure.
So that's been around with Trex for 20, 25 years. So there's tremendous growth in that area. There's also new products, as I mentioned, that we're looking at that would be adjacencies to what we do in outdoor living. So, and by the way, some of these new products, some new products you can do in 6 to 12 months. But if you're looking for foundational new products that will be game changers, so there's products we spend years on. And,
I can imagine.
And, from an R&D perspective, we're a very patient organization. We don't just want to just launch new products for new products' sake. It's launch the right product, right, that the consumer wants. And so we spend a lot of time and energy on those new products. And so there's some of those things in the pipeline that we're working on as well.
Well, one of the questions we like to ask all of our guests, kind of our land the plane question, is if you had the opportunity, whether it's going back, 17 years to when you joined Trex, or even further back when you're coming out of University of Pennsylvania, if you had the opportunity
Penn State.
I'm sorry.
That's
sorry.
That's Pittsburgh versus Philly, right?
I apologize. We'd beat them at football too. But if you had the opportunity to go back in time and give your younger self advice, knowing everything you know now, what might that advice be?
Man, that's a great question. So, first thing, I would say I was pretty blessed in terms of kind of how things have unfolded over my career. As I look back, if I think about who I am today, and as I look back, who I am today, or what I've become, it's more about mentorship. So in my role today, the most excitement to me may not necessarily be the next new product. It may not be growing in a new market. To me, it's watching somebody younger develop. That's kind of the position that I'm at today, and I probably get some of the most enjoyment out of that. When I look back at that, it was to have patience, right? I was a driver, type A, loved to get things done.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and I explain this a lot in our organization, there's tremendous amounts of opportunities out there. And when you're in your 20s, you push really hard, and sometimes you don't get the job, right? And so somebody looks at your position today and they assume that you've always gotten the job, right? But there's several different times in my life where I didn't get the job, and those were blows at the time for me. But when I look back, I had the right mentor that was kind of putting me in the position to learn more. So what I tell people today is that, for example, in sales, there was somebody that was looking to go out on the West Coast, and I told them, if you're not going to have your heart in it, right? They're on the East Coast. So if you're not going to have your heart in it, people will notice that. And then you won't do such a good job in that, right? Because people won't want to follow you. And then you're not going to be up for the next job. So no matter what you do, immerse yourself in it, right? And have that patience and try to build out your career. Fundamentally, make sure you do a really good job and you really know it before you want to go do the next thing. Because I think a lot of people, including myself, you look really forward and you want to move up and into that corner office, or you want to run a company and all that other stuff. But you also have to understand there's some foundational things you have to learn. And for me, the things that I had to learn was different parts of the business. So like I said, I was in a technical sales role. I was in marketing. I've had operations experience, supply chain, and I'm running a company now. So a lot of times everybody wants to go vertical, right? I want to stay in marketing. I want to do this and go vertical. And once in a while that definitely occurs. But as you want to grow within a company or you want to run a company, even if it's a startup, you need to learn different disciplines
Absolutely.
throughout an organization, whether it's HR, marketing, sales, manufacturing. So I always tell people, don't just be sold on this one way, this vertical direction up, because a lot of times it leads to the dead end, right? There might be some blocker in the way that you can't get there. So you have to be very adaptable, especially these days, to think outside of the box. What am I good at? Okay, you said 3D printing and all that stuff. I'm a very creative person, right? So what else can I do with my creative skill set outside engineering, right? Maybe it is, I'm not in R&D anymore. Maybe I go to supply chain. Maybe I go in manufacturing for a couple of years. But if I get noticed in more than one part of the organization, all of a sudden that makes me more valuable, right? Because now I essentially have people fighting for me. They're like, hey, I want to have him in my department.
Sure.
So that provides an opportunity for growth. So for me, it's hard because when you're younger, you say, what do you mean have more patience? But it's have more patience and try to learn as much as possible, right? Try to learn different disciplines, try to get to know other people. But a lot of people come on board. I say, what you need to do the first 90 days? Get to know everybody. Have them know who you are, right? And just learn about what they do so that you never know when that could lead to your next experience.
Sure.
So,
Great advice. Great advice. Well, we're glad you're here. We're glad you're in Arkansas. It's going to have a big impact on the state. We know that the state's going to be a great partner for you. You're going to be part of a fantastic ecosystem. How can our listeners find out more about Trex or about you?
That's a great question. If you go to trex.com, you'll see a part at the bottom of our webpage for careers where you can go there. There's also a spot there for Arkansas, and you'll see what positions are out there that we're hiring for. We're still looking for a plant manager right now, process engineering manager, project engineering manager. We just hired somebody in maintenance to run maintenance. We have somebody we've hired for HR. So you're going to see the jobs will continue to expand over the next 6 to 18 months, and more will continue to be posted as we need them. But expect by we get to next summer, there's going to be a major ramp up there. There will definitely be a team here in the port. And at that point, it'll be full bore as we're heading into 2024.
Awesome.
It's exciting.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Appreciate you very much. Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Ecosystem builders, entrepreneurs, chambers of commerce, mayors. If you're interested in taking your economic future into your own hands, we've got a book that can help you. Creating Startup Junkies, Building Sustainable Venture Ecosystems in Unexpected Places is the guide. It's a little bit inspiration. It's a little bit toolkit. What it will allow you to do is take your economic future into your own hands and build a sustainable small business, innovation, and entrepreneurial ecosystem in your backyard. If you'd like to hear more, check out creatingstartupjunkies.com. The Startup Junkie podcast reaches over 100 countries and has had over 100,000 downloads. If you're interested in reaching some of the most motivated and engaged innovators and entrepreneurs on a worldwide basis, give us a shout.